stories on how I've just seen racial profiling occur in my life over the past year. The first one would be when I was going out to eat with my friends in Fort Wayne, and there were two men in front of us who were presumed to be Muslim. One of my friends looked at me and said, "I'm terrified. Is he going to bomb the place? They really make me uncomfortable." And the second instance would be when I was at the store, and I overheard a cashier tell one of her other employees that she had to go watch these two black men when they came in because they were usually thugs, and those people normally were going to steal stuff. So you're probably thinking that I really need to go to different places or that I need to have new friends. But the funny thing is that this isn't something that has just been embedded in my life. It's something that has been studied and seen and researched for years in American society. So what's the issue here? Why are we constantly thinking or mumbling racial slurs, but outwardly we're saying that we're not racist? These attitudes embedded in American society bring me to my claim. We need to stop making assumptions about other people based off of racial characteristics because they've been going on for far too long. So when asking around what people thought when they heard the word Muslim, several responses that I got were terrorists, 9/11, or bombs, just like my friends, and how they felt that way. When I asked about African Americans, several people said violent, thugs, or thieves, or ghetto-like. So these beliefs are based on learned behavior. We are not born into the world with presumed knowledge about other people based on their racial characteristics. These things are taught. They're taught by our friends, they're taught by our parents, they're taught by our politics, and they're taught by a society that even encourages these idealistic views sometimes. Quoted in an article from Gale's Opposing Viewpoints, historically, racial profiling in the United States has been rooted in policies like the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, and the Johnson-Reed Act of 1924, end quote. So if these policies are being implemented in American history over and over again to intentionally bring up the white race and bring down anyone else who doesn't really look the same, why are they there? Another instance of some of these policies would be the New York stop and frisk policies. And quoted in the same Gale article, New York's stop and frisk practices were used to search pedestrians for weapons, drugs, and other illegal items. The technique was used against young people of color to such a disproportionate degree that it was eventually deemed unconstitutional and banned. Despite proponents' claim of a need for such policies, data from the Stop and Frisk program revealed that nearly 90% of the over 5 million people stopped and frisked between 2002 and 2007 were found to be innocent of any crime, end quote. So for 5 years, the police officers in New York were stopping people to check young men and women who were black to make sure that they weren't committing any crime. And we all know the classic that the illegals are here to steal our jobs, and to sell drugs in the drug cartel, especially with the controversy over the border. So what is going on? What is this phenomenon? I'm assuming that others are bad or others are evil just because they look different than every white person that we know. It's called racial profiling, like I said earlier, and quoted in another Gale article, racial profiling occurs when individuals are suspected of acting with criminal intent due to stereotypes or assumptions related to their race, ethnic background, country of origin, or religion, end quote. So here's what we do. We stop this trend. And I know that that sounds really simple, but it's something that particularly is. Instead of thinking of the word terrorist when we hear someone say something about someone Muslim, or if we see a Muslim, or instead of thinking that African Americans are violent or thugs, or plaguing Mexicans as being illegal, we think about people being people first. We think about people being strong men and women with family, lives, and jobs, just trying to live in American society like the rest of us. We be the generation that changes it, and that we recognize that people are people, and all people do good, and all people do bad, no matter their race, religion, or country, and none of these things should be plagued with just being good or just being bad. So, the people that are plagued as being violent, or being terrorists, or being illegals, actually in Chicago there has been evidence to show that they are less guilty of a lot of different crimes than just your basic white American. So quoted by a study by Ayers, in Chicago, the city's own data shows that black African Americans and Hispanics were searched 4 times more often than white Caucasians, but contraband was found in the possession of white drivers 2 times as often, end quote. So what this meant was that white people were found with drugs twice as often as African Americans or as Hispanics were in this study. Racial profiling occurs daily, and people are targeted by it every single day, and proof of a recent attack would be by Isaiah Joel Peoples, who hit a group of people that he, quote, believed to be Muslim with his car. Fortunately, none of these victims were killed, but this happened in April, and these victims did fall into the endless labyrinth of the news stories that go into full circle. We see these stories We get sad for them, we forget, and then we move on until we find the next one with the click of our remotes. This is just one of the hate crimes that was forgotten in America, and it just occurred over 2 months ago. So like I said earlier, we need to be the generation that changes these stereotypes, and we need to stop racial profiling and end this instant full circle news story phenomenon where we just click and we see the next one. Imagine us living in a world where we could talk to people, or we could see other people and hear what they're saying without fearing that they are judging us based on presumed knowledge, or that we are judging them. And it goes both ways. So throughout my whole speech, I've been pretty much arguing for white people not racial profiling against other races, but it needs to go both ways. It needs to be reciprocated back. So this would be a world where cops and white people wouldn't have to fear being presumed to be racist, and cops wouldn't have to worry about there being riots if they arrested a black man. African Americans wouldn't even have to worry about being unjustly arrested in this new world, and Mexicans wouldn't have to worry about being called illegals if they were full citizens, and Muslims wouldn't have to be presumed to be terrorists. Like I have said throughout this whole thing, people are people, and they do good and bad in every race, and that brings me back to restate my claim. We need to stop allowing and making judgments about others to be made that target people who don't look the same. Williams quotes, "It takes recognizing the privilege you hold, whatever form it takes, and using it to eradicate centuries-old systems of oppression. Opposition to racism must be paired with action to be effective. You don't have to wait for another viral video or hashtag to take action. Death and physical violence should not be the catalyst for acting." End quote. So the next time you hear or you think thoughts of racial profiling, you should stand up and challenge yourself and ask the other people why they're thinking this way and what has caused them to believe these ideas. We need to be the generation that puts an end to this racial profiling that has been embedded in America for years for us to be the great nation that we were destined to be. Thanks. Sorry to really bring it down from, talking about dual flavors, but... yeah.
Were there any other countries that you saw that had racial profiling as bad as here?
Well, I didn't really look into other countries, but just based on the different history classes and stuff, since America has had such a growing issue with different minorities, and since we're still pretty young, not so much now, but several other countries have had issues too.
When you were talking about the New York police checking the African American citizens to find out if they were carrying any weapons or doing any crimes, did they have any suspicion whatsoever, or was that just solely based on color of their skin?
It was solely based on color of their skin, because in that article that I read, they stopped over 5 million people in 5 years, and there was no suspicion on it. It was basically just, hey, you're walking here and you're black, are you doing anything that's illegal? So yeah, it was pretty unfair. Yeah.
So you said you asked people around the school about, you asked about black people and you asked about Middle East people. Did you ask about any other races, or did you ask people of color about white or other races?
I did not. Which, this is a bad excuse, but because we have lack of diversity, really, it would have been pretty hard to find, because
okay.
yeah.
So did you